everybody. It's Sunday, and it's such a great day. I hope you joined us in worship this morning. And so I felt like, togetherness and unified in spirit as we lifted our voice to heaven. So I want to jump in. We just only have a few more days in John just to jump in. And here we are in chapter 21, and John is just finishing his letter up. And, we're going to be done tomorrow. We celebrate on Tuesday. So here we are on a Sunday in John chapter 21. And here's an interesting story that John records is after Jesus is showing himself or appears to his disciples that they go to Galilee. The Passover is over, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and so they're venturing back to Galilee. One of the commentaries points to Mark chapter 14, where Jesus was talking to the disciples, and he kind of gives them an idea after Peter denied Christ. Well, after his denial was predicted, it says that verse 28 of chapter 14, he says, "But after I've risen, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." A lot of people write that they were going back to their normal life, that everything was over. Well, Jesus had just presented himself to the disciples, and this is not the kind of the attitude or the mindset of those who have seen the resurrected Lord, especially as after he's commissioned them to be sent. So they still need to receive the orders of where to go, and kind of just putting together and grasping the fact that what they've seen, they're processing, and then what they're going to say to others. And so I believe that if those that would say something like that, I don't think that that's the right direction to go to, because here they are they're going back to Galilee, and it's probably 99.9% the fact that they knew that Christ had already said, "Hey, I believe he's going to go to Galilee." And so as he does so, of course, they were kind of going in smaller groups. And I don't know if that was just not being detected or by, the Romans or the Jews or whatever it was, but they still were traveling in groups, and they were going in smaller groups here. And it said that this group, possibly, the small group here, and he declares in verse 3, "I'm going fishing." Of course, Tiberias, the Sea of Tiberias is another name, and John's the only one that uses it. It's the Sea of Galilee. And so hey, we're coming with you. And so as they go out to the boat, and of course, it was at night, and they caught nothing, and they were used to that. It doesn't really record any moanings or groanings, but they were used to that. So daybreak came, and here's Jesus on the shore. But the disciples did not know it was him. And John is doing a good job at the end here of saying that Jesus is revealing himself. When it says Jesus appeared, the Greek word really is to reveal himself. And he says they didn't know it was Jesus. "Friends," he called to them, "you don't have any fish, do you?" They said, "No." He said, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." And so they did. And they were unable to haul it because of the large number of fish. The disciple, the one that Jesus loved, said to Peter, "It is the Lord." It is the Lord. Remembering the different times, the miracles, signs, and wonders. It is the Lord. And it was John that pointed that out to Peter. Peter heard, and he tied his outer clothing around him, and he plunged into the sea, right? Since they were not far from land, about 100 yards away, and the disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish. Peter was so excited to see the Lord that he plunged into the sea. And he swam. He had a long swim, but he swam because it's the Lord. He was so excited to see it. That doesn't sound like fearful men who are going to go back to their occupations, and just because it's over. This is not the way that fearful men would operate, right? So they see the Lord, and they come back, and they catch the fish. They saw a charcoal fire there, fish on it, and bread. And so Jesus had prepared this meal, right? And it shows that Jesus still is providing for their needs. He's still providing for their needs. Well, what of the catch? It was so full. It was described as the net was brought ashore. There's 153 of them, and there's no, people can squabble about what that means. It's not even symbolic. What we miss is that the net was full of fish, right? When the gospel net is was cast, the haul, when it brings in, it will not break. There's the point today, right? And so it said there were so many that the net was not torn. So when the gospel net is cast, it will not break. Yes, there was a large amount of fish, but Jesus is still revealing himself over and over and over by appearing to them, right? And so he says, come and have breakfast. He doesn't give them an opportunity to place their hands or whatever in the wounds. He's not doing that. He's saying, none of these disciples dare even ask him, who are you? Because they knew. So in Jesus' revelation to the disciples, they are coming back and say, it is the Lord. They are sure. They know without a shadow of a doubt what they need to do to say to those that they meet after Jesus leaves. This revelation is making sure they understand He is the Lord. He did die for us. He was buried. He rose again. And that is the truth. And so as Jesus reveals himself even more and more and more, and John says it was about the third time that Jesus appeared after his resurrection. So he took bread, he gave it to him, and he did the same with the fish, showing to serve with compassion, serve with passion, share the gospel with all that they are. In this setting, it's so intimate. It's like the Last Supper type of experience. And so it's important to note this, that as Jesus is appearing to his disciples, be able to catch and understand what it is that they're to grasp. One is to make sure they know He is the Lord. Two is when he said that I will make you fishers of men, that they understood that when you cast the net with the gospel, it's going to come back full. It will not break. So be bold in sharing, right? And make sure they understand what the gospel is. Make sure they understand that He is the risen Lord. I hope you have a great Sunday. God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow.